the body is a self-regulating organism. It knows how to heal. And it's about putting it into the right environments, giving it the right factors to support and facilitate that healing, versus being in such a defensive process, which much of health today is. It's defense care. The 21st century crisis is stress related. And when we think about the byproduct of that, it's non-communicable diseases, which calls in mind-body medicine to address that, neuropathology for stress management, yoga therapy, and mind-body modalities to help with self-knowing, self-regulation, and address the stress head-on. Like I said, it's not about getting rid of stress, it's learning to co-create and collaborate with it in a way that builds resilience in our bodies and our minds, and then also helping us choosing things that are good for our nervous system.
First thing that comes to mind is that notion that yoga is somehow simply stretching. Stretching the body, but it's so much more than that. It's a whole body, mind, spirit modality. And if I think back to some of the first times I ever went to a yoga class, that's sort of what was delivered to me, that very surface experience. And so I stepped away from it for a long time because it just didn't really resonate. It didn't leave a big mark on me. And then I felt this pull to try again, and it was a completely different experience. And I began to see how that barely scratched the surface of what yoga can offer.
What was it that led you to come back to it?
To come back to it, it was a call and a need to really come back home to me. It came after a pretty long and arduous battle with cancer, which involved a lot of treatments and removals of body parts and all sorts of things. And there came a time where I kind of pieced myself back together physically, but I continued to feel this big disconnect with my body. And I felt, I guess, like a really grayscaled version of myself, not the full color version. And so I know I needed something more. And that's when I started to return to yoga. And gratefully, when I came back to it, I experienced some talented teachers who really wove so many other things into each class experience, with breath and with mindfulness. And I started to see the power of how this one simple practice could touch on so many different things. Just in that experience, or any traumatic experience, that separation from body, we step outside of the body to deal with physical pain, emotional pain, fear, all of those things. Yoga is a place where I found that safety to begin, first of all, to really notice my body. How does my body feel? Where does it feel what it feels? How does it feel if I bring breath and awareness to that place? And I think it's a slow awakening. It's nothing that happens all at once, but it's like a door has been opened, right? And then it's just this deeper and deeper discovery of really befriending the body.
I was really doing something for myself, that this was something more than just trying to build up core strength and stability for cycling or overcoming an injury that I'd had. I came to yoga in March of 2017. I was going through a breakup. I also just sustained a groin injury from cycling. It had been suggested to me by my physical therapist, once my physical therapy days had run out, or hours of physical therapy from my medical insurance, that I try doing yoga, that it would be a lot more cost effective and it would help me build strength for sustaining what we had done in physical therapy and help me progress in my recovery in getting back to doing the cycling I like to do. And I signed up for one of the beginner yoga classes and went in and went through the process. It was really, I think it was a little scary, a little intimidating at first, going in there for the first time, just like any new experience is. But there was a sense of feeling almost at home. As soon as I got into the studio and started moving, I felt like I might not know exactly everything I was doing, but it was okay. I started going back for more beginners classes and tried out different teachers, yoga teachers in different times for several weeks. As I kept going through this practice, I noticed that I was getting stronger. I was finding places in my balance, in my core, that I was finding strength that I had not found before. It wasn't until a class where I was challenged in a way that really caught me off guard. I was balancing. I noticed that I was sort of doing good on one side, and then the other side where I had felt some confidence, then switching to another side of balancing, I started feeling some weakness and I was really shaky, and my confidence started to slip, and there was just a lot of fear that came through at that moment. The instructor at that time walked past me and noticed where I was and how I was struggling, and made the comment, not specifically to me, but standing next to me and saying it generally to the class as an offering, not as direction, but asking if any of us could find a place where we felt okay with the work we had done and the poses that we had made and how we were in our body, and if it was okay, if we could allow ourselves or gift ourselves to be okay where we were at, or allowing ourselves to rest. And that really changed my mindset, because I had never thought about giving myself that, saying I did really good, I've done work, I did really good on one side, on this other side it's different, it's challenging, and accumulative of all the things I'd been through that day. Could I gift myself the permission of being okay, just relaxing, or just going into child's pose? And doing that was the first time I had ever really made the connection with self-care.
I don't think I really truly understood the full depth of how yoga integrates to the inside of the body. Before, I really just had this idea that you did the movements, you did the breath work, it also brought calm into your mind, but I didn't really understand how it was that it worked. And I didn't realize just how broad and the vast amount of change that happens in a person until I started experiencing it for myself. And then when it started working with private clients and seeing that in them and seeing just how much change could be brought in just a short period of time. Having clients that were not needing pain medication anymore. They were able to stop going in as frequently or completely for injections to relieve their pain. Clients that were able to have much more movement to do the things that they enjoyed in their life. Those are the things that really just drew me further and further into the yoga world.
There's a quote that I heard a long time ago, is that the best doctor teaches. When we think about providers, the difference between healing and addressing the symptoms versus healing and addressing the individual, yoga therapy, yoga, mindfulness, integrative medicine as a whole really looks at the individual. And in our healthcare system, with everything going on from non-communicable diseases, stress-related illnesses, there is a huge opportunity, because with those, we're seeing this byproduct of all of these adjunct symptoms. It's compounded. We have this physical problem going on, but then there's also this mental issue going on, and then there's imbalance in their environment, and it's a domino effect. And so cleaning that up as a fragmented healthcare system can be really challenging. And so when we look at how yoga plays a huge role in addressing these things, mindfulness, one, builds the awareness. Yoga practices, for two, help with stress regulation. So all of these issues within the body, starting to downregulate, creating new neural patterns, and so forth. This is all the nerdy stuff we get into in our trainings, but to share for those watching this and wanting to understand why yoga does what yoga does, it's because when you look at propensity to illness, so think about it from an equation, and this is a mind-body medicine equation. You have stress factors divided by coping skills equal propensity to illness. So stress in life is inevitable, but our coping skills are how we deal with suffering, how we adapt, how we regulate ourselves. That's the stuff where we can really address to do the work. When we're resisting stress and we're avoiding the actual problems versus going, okay, I'm maybe having this issue now, but I'm gonna do, I always say, make it cozy. Find your cozy. How can I make it cozier? How do I choose things that are good for my nervous system? When I lean into that kind of stuff, that's gonna decrease propensity to illness.
When I did 200, I was a team lead in the emergency room, and like I said, we were in the height of COVID at that time. You can just see people, and I felt it too, people were just heavy all around. The compassion was gone, empathy, was going away. I really took the time to, even though I wasn't comfortable at the time with my true voice, I was still working on that. I really felt the need to just pause for them and allow them to pause for themselves. And I got a lot of eye rolls and all of that, but it really needed to happen. And I think the nursing community is still working with some of the struggles and some of the emotions that, they went through. With all the training that I've gotten, I can share that, and that's really what I want to do.
My name is Alice Blisman. I am completing yoga teacher training with MelMarie Yoga. I am a board-certified family medicine physician, passionate about lifestyle medicine. I am also a military veteran and a military spouse and a mom of two. Yoga has always been something I truly enjoyed doing that really just kind of rejuvenated my mind, my body, and soul. And I started practicing yoga while I was pursuing my medical degree. I'm now a board-certified family medicine physician and passionate about lifestyle medicine, mind-body medicine. And I've noticed just for myself while practicing yoga how beneficial it was to my mental health, and hopeful that if perhaps I can bring this type of experience or education to the patient population, it will be a lovely thing that could prevent a lot of the chronic diseases that we see in our modern world right now.
And people being an advocate for their own health and well-being more so than anything else. With me, with my personal practice, it's all over the place. My background was plumbing and pipe fitting. That's what I did for nearly 15 years. And then before that, I was a tree topper out west. So I'd climb up, pine trees and cut the tops off. I did that for 4 or 5 years before I met my wife. But the trauma that I have a small frame, and the joints and ligaments having those types of stressors, what I found was that a regular practice of yoga is more beneficial than any doctor's appointment I ever went to. It didn't fix any of the discs, right? It didn't, but it did allow the muscle structures to allow the bone structures to be in a better position to where it's not nearly as painful as anything. I mean, I can do anything, and that's why I see it with people. They say they can't do yoga. Well, the thing is, the only people that can't do yoga are the ones that don't.
So something that's really interesting about our modern Western healthcare models is that if you list them out, whether it's the paradigm of health for mental, spiritual, emotional, psychosocial, whatever, those lists, You will also see that the 8 limbs of yoga is the same exact healthcare model. If you look at healthcare models on the biopsychosocial model, for example, you're going to see that in yoga philosophy. A lot of yoga philosophy already explains a lot of these models, so there's a beautiful mirroring that occurs between the philosophy and actual medical interventions, which is another reason why this is so relevant to explore in our healthcare landscape.
In psychiatry, it's great being mindful, being present, having a robust meditative practice. All these things will help you become in touch with yourself. You understand some of the trauma that's inside of you. You're able to create coping mechanisms and exercises that helps you navigate, our mental well-being, and helps you be a more healthier person, all the way around. I think it would be great for like orthopedics, people get injured all the time, and, the doctor will give them a surgery or give them a treatment plan, send them off to physical therapy, and then there's nothing else. I think that, having, a yoga practice, after an injury or, just overall good health is fantastic. And it helps with, the other things that you have. You can think of geriatrics, it helps people move. It keeps the blood pressure down. It helps with heart problems. All these things are wonderful. You can use, the wellness and spirituality in almost all forms of medicine, and it would be a great adjunct, and you'll get better outcomes.
Somebody is in an older body, I would say absolutely do yoga, because movement is the key to life. The more we move in our body, the more we have access to movement in our body, and that is the key to healthy aging. The body is this amazing vehicle. It has so many opportunities for working to bring itself into balance. You may not be able to completely treat illnesses, but they can definitely be managed. And there's always that potential. You never know what the body can do given the circumstances and the environment that it's placed in.
If somebody's going through, whether it's healing from cancer or another illness,
Sure.
autoimmune, anything, what would you tell them about starting yoga?
To just begin, right? It's so cliche that showing up to your practice is the hardest thing. And I would say begin with a lot of compassion for yourself, because in this new body, you're getting to know yourself again in a new way. It's a different body. It's a different experience. And also to be patient. There are many different styles of yoga. And within those styles, there's lots of different personalities in teachers, right? So if someone is new to the practice, really encouraging them to, if they try one teacher, one class, and maybe it wasn't the most magical thing they have ever experienced, but not being afraid to try again and to explore some different scenarios before they throw in the towel. So finding something just like you would with your physician or a nutritionist or anybody, like you want a good rapport and relationship with that teacher, like somebody who can guide you, but in a gentle way, and it's more of a conversation, right?
I always say yoga is like ice cream.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's a lot of different flavors and styles, so you got to flavor it out to find the flavor that works for you, right? And then from there, the resonating with your teachers and providers for sure.
Yeah, so. No doubt.
There's been, especially in the past few years, a huge shift where we are concentrating more on preventive therapies as well as lifestyle intervention therapies to target chronic diseases. In the medical clinics, we do a lot of counseling, but of course, with time permitting, there's not a whole lot we can do as well. So I think being able to at least plant the seeds in patients in the clinics to discuss about some of the benefits and providing resources for like, hey, there's yoga classes over here that you could do with your children, or educating parents. I love that already schools are implementing a lot of yoga education in their physical education classes. I know my kids are always coming home and teaching me what they taught about certain breathing exercises, the balloon breathing, bunny breaths, things like that. So I love that I'm seeing that already, because in my childhood, I don't recall any of those kind of learning mindfulness techniques in our classrooms at all. So I'm very, very hopeful for the future of medicine, incorporating more of mind-body medicine, especially early on, starting in childhood.
There's, it was sort of this slow evolution. It came with, sort of rediscovering the practice and deepening the practice. And as I did that, the name here is House of Healing. It's really both a unique and universal thing, right? We all are universal in that we need healing from something, right? You don't get out of this life without needing to heal from something, but very unique in our own path, right? So for me, as I started to put myself back together, I kind of thought of myself, this was before the studio, as a house, and my house needed some renovation, right? Or it had been through a lot of renovation and now it needed polishing up. And it just needed to get to a happier and healthier place, and a place that where I felt whole. It began as a personal journey, but when I saw how powerful that could be for me, and then at the time I was teaching some things privately, I thought, I really have this dream of having a space where other people can come, and as soon as they walk in the door, hopefully they begin to feel that blanket of peace settling over them before they even make it to their mat. And then it's a reminder every time we step on that mat to return home to self, and to really greet yourself as you are that day, different body, maybe, right? But those things, that the mat becomes that mirror for life. What we practice again and again on the mat really has that way of trickling out into our everyday lives, hopefully making things out there in the world just easier to approach, right?
What's an example? Like when you look at the mat as a metaphor in a way?
Oh, for sure. Creating space between stimulus and response. Like, training yourself to say, okay, wait a minute, when I notice something, instead of that initial knee-jerk reaction, when something arises, giving just that little moment of space. Like, okay, before I react, how can I meet this in a more mindful way? Just giving yourself that space.
When people realize that our inner system is so equipped for vitality, if we look at health and we go, the yogic perspective is about salugenesis. Salugenesis is about increasing potential for vitality, where pathogenesis is about decreasing symptoms. When we shift into this increasing vitality, this salugenesis model, this perspective, where we collect more vitality in our lives, we find more wellness. Wellness is not a destination. It's our accountability to our own health. It's a responsibility to our own well-being. And when we start to foster a culture that is available to collaborate with duality, I think we'll start to see that it's both, that we can look at the challenges, nourish our resistance, we can lean in and give ourselves permission to do what feels good for us. Because I think that's a huge issue in our culture. We're like, it's selfish to do things that are good for you or to take time for yourself. And that's actually killing us. It's time we shift these paradigms. And I believe that we're walking right into that future.